goals of this assignment, you're going to uncover and share an artifact that signifies something to you. To practice. Oh, and sorry, Ness, LMU. Oh, yes, and you said it. Thank you, Paul. So yeah, it's like Marina Del Rey. It's called like Westchester, but it's like right up above there, if you will. So it's oh, is this person? I may need to get out of here, but I thought I had this for Zoom. All right, well, we'll see. If somebody tells me to leave, then I will. Then you're also going to practice the use of a visual aid while delivering a speech online. So you'll be delivering, you'll be engaging, and then you'll be presenting your speech or your visual aid strategically at specific times of your speech. And then you will also be gaining experience recording. And well, no, you're not going to do that either. See, it's talking about these things from before. You don't have to just do a speech or upload anything. But let's look at this description, y'all. That's what is still true. You will come to me. I will record this for you. You don't worry. In an effort to make this assignment low, easy, and low pressure and fun, I want you to take a couple minutes and consider the question: what artifacts or things help you to get through the day? I encourage you to think an artifact is anything that has meaning to you. So if we think about it, even this like Coke can, right? So I'm having this Coke. It is just a Coke can. But if I was at your house, let's say, and you had this like bent Coke can sitting up on your shelf, and I was over there and I don't know if I was cleaning, I'd probably just throw it out. I wouldn't think anything of it. But to you, that Coke can may represent the first time you maybe, I don't know, won a huge soccer game and you all pounded a Coca-Cola as a dare in the goal line. I don't know. And that's like commemorative. And so it always reminds you of that time, right? So objects simply don't have a lot of meaning. They have a use, right? My phone's use is to call people or to play music or to use the internet. It has a use value. But the meanings that we attach to that, the importance, the emotions that are connected to it, the need, the drive, the opportunities that allows us, those are up to you. And so this speech is going to build on the fundamental ideas that we went through in our last speech in the process of building the introduction, the body, and the conclusion, and utilizing those transitions to get us from point to point. But what we are also going to do now is we are going to put much more emphasis, or you are going to be putting much more emphasis on being able to communicate the meaning of something that in fact is not there or doesn't necessarily have a referent. So for example, in our last speech, it was to inform my audience or for you to get to know me a little bit better, right? I'll tell you about my job and my hobbies. But instead, for you to understand how this Coca-Cola signifies success is going to take a lot more effort and energy on your part in description, in storytelling, and giving examples and creating the link back to what that means for you. And don't worry, we'll go through how to do all of that today. But think about artifacts that you have. An artifact is really anything that is tangible and that you have attached meaning to it. It can be cultural meanings, personal meanings, social meaning, historical meaning, national meaning. It can be a book, a piece of jewelry, a calendar, your water bottle, a Bible, a cultural piece of art, a hashtag, a work of art, a photograph of family members. I have had all of these done before in class. So I want you to know that these are just some of the ways these ideas can come to life. Look around you, even today. I started this speech during quarantine when I was like, what are we going to do for the visual aid? Like it used to be just like a photograph speech and people would share photographs, but I was like, let's think about it. Because like what we started to see is people back in like their homes and we were in front of the computer all day long. And it was like, what in the world can I use Like, how am I going to get through this day? What's going to push me through? We're like really all this, we're trying to find hope and etc. But that all still, pertains to what we're doing here. So what are some things around you that can give us an insight to who you are or this specific artifact? So we all lean on specific things, on tools, on mementos, photos, objects, lucky charms, if you will. They help us get by all day long. They help us physically, they help us mentally, they help us emotionally, they help us to be organized, to accomplish our goals, to serve as support. So remember to be mindful of your audience when you are creating this speech, have your ethical responsibilities there with you as well, and show your appropriate material for the class. And for clarity, please don't share any adult items that may be inappropriate, or any alcohol or any drugs, if that makes sense. We don't want to lean on those things or encourage those things. Where your communication expertise is going to come in. And this is what I said a little bit before. An object is just an object until someone gives that object meaning, right? Your job is going to be to create and communicate that meaning to us that we would not have known if I was just looking at it. How would I have known I wasn't supposed to throw this bent out of shape Coca-Cola can away? Whatever it is that keeps you going in your world, think about it, consider it, and we'll go forward from there. Does this make sense to y'all? Okay, cool. I'm going to.
I have a question.
Yes, yep, go. What?
So basically it's like it can be anything that has like a significance to me, or does it have to be like an actual like cultural item?
No, I mean, really, it could be any of those examples that I just threw out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. It can be anything, and it can be like a multitude of meanings for you, as or not. It should be just one meaning, if you will. But when we talk about the meaning, so for example, this water bottle and I'm going to go through some of these examples for you right now, but
Yeah.
like this water bottle signifies energy throughout my day.
I
Right?
see.
And it's like, okay, so it signifies energy. This picture means motivation. This can is success.
So it doesn't particularly have to relate back to your introduction speech, but it can if you want it to.
I don't think that it would in any way unless you were referencing something from your introduction speech. All I
Yeah.
was saying in terms of building is that you're going to be building on the skills that you learned there. And now we're
Mhm.
going to bring in two new ones, and that's using visual aids during our speech effectively
Mhm.
and fluidly, and two, building out and growing our transitions a bit more. The other thing is that within our body, because the object holds meaning that we don't really understand. So, for example, last time you're like, I like to play video games. We're like, we understand what video games are in context, right?
Yeah.
Like, we don't have to, like, okay, it's not that we have to sit here and understand what a video game is before we understand, like, that you like to play it because it's, engaging with other people or keeps your
Yeah.
adrenaline up, whatever. In this case, we have to do a lot more explaining. So that's why I'm saying we'll just build on those fundamentals and
Oh,
keep those in mind. And now let's build even more skills that you'll have in your tool belt of speaking.
okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Oh, so for each of y'all, we, as always, will start our speech with an introduction. Hopefully, each of you came to see while watching each other's speeches this past week. An introduction has three different parts that are required in it, and those will be graded, but they are also necessary for your audience. and they're part of a more strategic psychological approach to impacting your audience and also ensuring that they get the message that they need to and that's required. So an attention getter can be any type of device that is there to draw your audience in, but not, and I'm sorry, I feel like I have something in my eye other than these two eyelashes, but okay. It's something that's going to draw your audience in and get them interested and excited before you in fact reveal the topic. So you are not going to reveal your photograph when you come into the speech or when you begin the speech. The first thing you're going to do is give your attention getter. And your attention getter should not reveal that photograph because that's what the actual speech is about, much like revealing you and your name. So we will give the attention getter first, and then when you draw to the end of that attention getter, the connection to whatever your speech is going to be about, right? Whatever that meaning is, will start to be revealed. Because your attention getter should always relate back to the specific purpose. We have yet to get to writing the specific purpose of this speech, specific or like your example, but we know that it's like for you to know how the sunglasses are safety, right? That would be the specific purpose. So hold on writing your attention getter, like I always say, until you've already written your thesis statement. But know that in the reveal topic portion of this speech, you are going to have two responsibilities. The first responsibility is going to be to display your visual aid for the audience and show us what this artifact is. Like I said, next week you will learn more about the displaying portion, but for now, the most effective way for you to ensure that everybody in your audience is seeing the same thing is to put that object or that artifact onto some kind of photograph or visualized, into like some kind of photograph, and be able to put that up on your computer or in some type of screen sharing. Each of you have the ability to share your screen. So if you see down there below on your toolbar for Zoom, it should say new share in a green button. This will allow you to share your screen with the audience, and you will be practicing that next week as you get into your speech. And I'm sorry I didn't write this at the top. My goodness, see, there's so many things here that we just did not go over, and I'm so sorry, y'all. So, and I jumped into the gun because I went here. I digress. Let me go back for a hot second. So your speech, the speech is 2 to 3 minutes in length, much like the last one. This speech will be timed. I will give you a 2-minute warning and a 3-minute warning. At the 3 minutes, that means you have 30 seconds to wrap up. So after practicing your speech and going through it multiple times, you will know where you are at. And I encourage you to practice as you write so that you know where your timing is at, and also so of course it gets into your body at the same time. But the 2 to 3 minutes at the end, if you are running long and you see the 3 minutes, that is not a time to speed up. Instead, it would be a time to cut things out and jump to the end of this speech. Speeding up doesn't help us to comprehend your message any better, and oftentimes it will lead to many faults in delivery because you are feeling rushed. So keep in mind that timing. You are required to have one visual aid and only one visual aid for this speech. That one visual should represent what we are speaking about. All cameras should be on, like we said, during your speech and others, and you are not to use your phones or your tablets for the delivery or for your visual aid display. I say that because I don't want you doing like this, for example, and showing us on your phone and then trying to find it, and then it goes off, and then the text message with inappropriate things come up. It's just not correct. We also have yet to get into a place of understanding our social norms around cellular phones or devices or utilizing those in conversation. And the image that the perception of one utilizing a phone while somebody else is talking is still considered like rude, because it's like, oh, how could you understand that, how are you really even looking at me? You're not giving eye contact, paying attention. So instead, like I said before, keeping a brief set of notes with you that you can deliver from. You can have specific note cards. These are terrible examples, but there should be like a 5x7, or you can have a paper and a half, and you can always hold those notes with you. So keep that in mind. And then the other thing, like we said, for visual aids, we will talk about more of that next week, but the key part will be practicing with those visual aids. When you practice with your visual aid, you will start to note that the visual aids take time to display. You have to click the share, then you need to explain what we are seeing, then you need to reference it, or perhaps talk about it a little bit before you get into the speech. So making sure that you practice with that and then utilize that in your time that you are doing for the day or for your speech. So any questions up to there thus far before we get into the next part about this revealing the topic? Yeah, go ahead, Paula.
Just for clarity, we don't have to do the screen sharing. We can just hold an object. Is that correct?
You can hold an object.
Okay.
The good news is, when it comes time, it's really like if you, let's say, needed to reference a piece on that object. So like, let's say it's an important cultural piece, or like it's a family crest or something, right? And it has parts of it that you want to share, rather than being like, so here, and like to get close, it's easier to just have it in a visual representation rather than holding it so that we can see what you're referring to. If the object is a phone, we do not need to see that in phone because we have more than likely a reference of that. And it really depends upon, again, what your goal is for the speech and what your main points and your purpose is, that will lend insight to how to display it best for your audience.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure. So when you reveal, you are going to be revealing your topic, and that will be by showing us what you were talking about and making the connection to your attention getter. So in this case, like, you gave us this attention getter, and you told us a little bit about what, this intriguing statement. How does that now, with this reveal of topic, say, oh, that's where we're going into, and that's what this is really going to be about. So try to create that connection that leads us easily into the artifact of choice. And then reveal that artifact and tell us any details about it that we may need to know about before we get into the body of the speech. Now, your main points are going to be up to you to choose. So whether you talk about your, the who's in it and where you were going, or how it means sadness and despair, or if you want to point out the interesting colors and strokes used in the painting, right? That means something. I don't know what those things are, but remember that whatever those main points are going to be, you're not going to go into detail about those in the beginning. But if I'm showing you, let's say, a photograph or let me grab something here. For example, this used to be, and let me stop this so you can see the full share. There's a picture, maybe some of you have seen it. It's a famous painting. So this is a famous painting. It's called The Scream. If any of you have ever seen the movie Scream or anything, you may recognize the mask face right here. Oh, it all comes from the same thing. So the individual who gave this speech talked about what it's just signified in general. And this individual was an art student at the time. And so this individual said, for you to understand how this speech signifies the unknown, I will tell you a little bit about the ominous, figures in the background, the colors of black and blue in the waters, and the figure in the front. And so these three things was going to be what they talked about. So if you were somebody who had never seen this photograph before, what would you be asking yourself before the individual went into talking about the things and the color and how that signified something else? You may want to know who did it. So it could be something like your background, or any revealed topic could be, this is a photograph an oil painting titled The Scream, and it was created by Edvard Munch in 1893, and it hangs in the National Gallery of Norway and is most famous for its ambiguity. And today I would like to tell you a little bit about how this picture to me signifies the unknown by describing the outfit, blah, 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 right? So that's how they go into it and giving us those pieces of background. The same thing for each of you. You may show us a picture, maybe show us the present, maybe show us something that you've gotten, and potentially you're not going to tell us when you got it or who gave it to you or where it came from. Then maybe tell us about that in the introduction so that we can get some context of how it came to be and then what it is. You also may not need any context. For example, in the last speech, I had a student, or in the last class, I had a student, and I will show you this real quick, who wanted to do music. It's not necessarily an artifact per se, but she wanted to do music. And I said, okay, well, then why don't you think about simply using a music note as a way to visually represent what that thing is. Typically, I would like something tangible. However, in this case, music gets this person through their day in multiple ways. Hold on one second, everybody. Right now, thank you so much. Okay, hold on one second, everybody. I'm going to push pause. Give me a hot tip. Okay, now I'm just hoping for the best. This one is much nicer anyways, and without profanity on the door, so that's good. Okay, so let me jump in here so that we don't get cut off again. And let's get back into this reveal of the topic. So once we've given any background or details that we need the audience to know before we get into the speech, we then will go into creating our thesis statement. And so what you are going to want to do for this thesis statement, and there's a lot of different ways, of course, to develop this, but I want you to start thinking about what your speech is about. What's that central unifying idea, the specific purpose? So the specific purpose of your speech is the reason that you're speaking. That's how this thing gets you through. Now, I want you to remember that getting you through your day can mean anything to you. It does not literally have to be, it gets me through my day, but it could be for you like for example, if your artifact is something that sustains you all day, or gets you through work, or gets you through chores, or gets you through sadness, gets you through when you're unmotivated, when you're feeling, down, when you, and we even talked a little bit in my last class about how like that could be, what's the word, like getting you, like the music, that it, when you are sad, it can turn your day around, right? So that was these ideas. So think about what that one thing is. There should only be one specific purpose. And then we come up with our how. So what are the ways it helps? This is the because. So if each of you put, this artifact helps me get through my day because, right? That because is what your specific purpose is. So getting those two things. For the purpose of this speech, I want you to make sure that you are only using 2 main points. Having 3 is going to be way too many to also utilize the visual aid. And so make it easier on yourself in terms of time and come up with only 2 different ways. So I want us to maybe do even a practice here of this. And so we'll practice really quick in terms of this thesis statement. And here are some like samples that you can always try if you wanted as well. So something like, for you to understand why this pin gets me through my day, I will describe who is in it and what it reminds me. So for example, I am somebody who struggles and is diagnosed with social anxiety, which may come as a huge shock for what I do, but I do. And so for me, I had a pin, and I didn't even bring it in here, but it's a picture of me, and I'm pregnant with my Dylan Rose on the beach. My husband took it, and he made it into this little pin that I put on the inside of my either shirts or like jackets or whatever. And it helps me get through my day when I'm feeling fearful, and because of who is in that picture and what it reminds me of, right? So why this pin gets me through my day when fear, I will describe who is in it and what it reminds me of. So those are the 2 ways that I will do so. Another thesis example is a student of mine who, in the beginning of our speech, showed us a picture of a family standing in front of an apartment building. And this was a photograph that this individual kept with him and kept in like on his the front of his computer, whatever that is. And this picture motivates me to work because of the work my parents came in or put in and my own future goals. So this person was very motivated to put in energy and effort to work. This picture, what we came to find, was a picture of his first apartment that his parents were able to rent in the United States. And his goal was not only the reminder of how hard his parents worked to give him what he had, but then for the future about how he wants to continue to work to provide a safety and shelter for his family. It was an easy way to do that. The other one, the clock on my desk, that was a good one too. Having a clock on my desk helps me to be mindful of my health by reminding me to breathe and walk. Over the pandemic, we sat down for hours sitting. It's the new smoking. So, and right, feeling stressed, all these different things. So just like having the clock, that was like a really important thing, that it had a little alarm and it went off every couple, take a breath before this one meeting. And then, to walk and get up and move the body so that it just continue to promote health. So there's so many different ways that you can go with it, but simply make sure that you are structuring that specific purpose and those main points correctly. So does that kind of make sense on how you can articulate and how you can articulate and come up with your own thesis statement? Okay, cool. I'm going to move Or did anybody by chance have an idea of a artifact they wanted to use that I could do with them real quick?
I thought to do my pup.
Oh yeah, like your
My
dog?
small- Yeah, is that okay?
You absolutely can, because it really is like something tangible. What is the, like, so, having your dog with you, what would be like the thought? What's that meaning for you? How does that dog get you through?
Well, she's got a really happy, energetic personality, which always kind of brings me out of whatever funk I'm in or stress that I'm having throughout my day. And she's, my comfort.
Okay,
She's
comfort.
11 years old. Yeah, comfort.
There we go. So that's good. So for you to understand how, and what's the dog's name again? I forgot.
It's Bunny.
For you to understand how Bunny gets me through my day. Or for you to understand how Bunny for me represents comfort. I will talk to you about, right? So you could do it in those two ways if you wanted. Absolutely. And if you wanted to bring Bunny, you can, of course, showing Bunny, making sure that Bunny maintains and is fine to be or isn't a
Weird.
distraction. But you can also just put a picture of Bunny up, but we can also see Bunny whenever you want. Yeah, it's
Let's
always my
see if
favorite.
you can see
Oh,
Bunny.
there you go. Oh, Bunny, you're so cute.
Well, my screen does weird things. Okay.
I love that. It was cool. Yeah, so absolutely can do that, or just have a picture of Bunny. It's fine as well. Okay, so after you deliver your introduction and you've laid out your attention getter, your reveal topic, and you've drawn us to your thesis statement, don't forget that you are required to have transitions. In week 5, you are also going to be working on developing transitions a bit more creatively and fluidly. You are more than welcome to stick to the same 3 points, right? So first, I'll tell you a little bit about who's in the picture of the pin, so that you can understand how it helps me when I'm afraid. And going into and reminding us of also that central idea. And that's really going to be very key, is making sure that that we are reminding our audience why we are speaking. It's not only going to help them keep on track, but it's going to help each of you remind yourselves of what you're speaking about as well. And then I want to make sure that you are also that you're just simply remembering to put them in front of each main point. That means you're going to have 2 transitions in this speech, one before your first main point and one before your second main point. So don't forget those. And then we go into developing our main points. Remember to speak these in fluid sentences, remind us of your idea, and start to create a situation or some context and understanding of what your artifact is. So there are a couple things to think about. And like we talked about in the last speech, remember that, we can talk about my playing guitar, but what does playing guitar have to do with you? Why do you play guitar? Why do you like to play guitar? What about the guitar is interesting to you? But now we're going to even need to describe the object itself, right? So describe a specific part of the artifact that you may want to highlight. So if you are in fact talking about something in the artifact that you want to refer to, you can in fact talk about that, describe it, show us. So that could be like, if you see here in the photograph, there is a depiction of a blank, right? And you can start to highlight those specific parts, detail it, and describe what we are seeing. Then you can talk about how that relates to whatever that specific purpose is. But otherwise, if you wanted to, or otherwise, what you will do is you will simply describe the artifact and then get back or describe the artifact in as much as we need to, because it may not even be that you're talking about the artifact. For example, in the pin example here, what it reminds me is not in that picture visually, right? So what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to talk to you about what it reminds me and how that also relates to me. So developing those at some length and detail, making sure that you are simply describing and explaining in as much as your audience needs to know, and that a stranger would not understand if they didn't have you to explain it. Give some, examples of how or why or what makes sense of your point. And then even if you think that you've explained, the artifact, be sure to include one culminating sentence that makes sense of the connection for your audience. So as you draw to a close of each main point, it's not a bad idea to remind your audience something like understanding how these individuals are a priority in my life hopefully lets you know how looking at them every time I feel scared helps me to feel more calm. Now that I've talked about who's in it, let me move forward to my, what they do, what it does for me, or whatever I wrote there. So really making sure that we're simply drawing back to that specific purpose. So for each of you, developing your main point, using explanations and examples to describe it to us, and then showing and demonstrating that specific connection. So potentially setting up a story of where you and your cousins were when you found this artifact in your grandparents, closet, who knows? So like, who was with you? Oh, my cousins, and this is what we were doing, and it was so much fun. And that time was so, it always makes me giggle and smile. And then the artifact makes you giggle and smile. So there's a lot of different ways to do it. This was one other thing that I wanted to talk about in terms of your main points. Last time we were going over the introduction speech, we talked about patterns of organization. Patterns of organization, remember, were ways to organize your main points. We talked about things like chronological organization, whereby for you to get to know me better, I'll tell you about my past, present, and future. Or perhaps topical organization. For you to get to know me better, I'll talk to you about my job, my hobbies, and my family. Individual topics that don't have anything to do with each other, but they all have something to do with you. Chronological, yes, they're all going to be about you, but those main points are going to go in order of time for fluidity and understanding. In terms of artifacts, this is where we start to talk about objects. And objects can be described spatially, meaning in order of direction or in order of space. So if we're thinking about like organizational patterns and directions, if you've ever been to like a mall in your life, when you walk in and you don't know where to go, there will be a map, right, to get you there. It is the same kind of idea. It's a map of something. So if I was going to inform you about a particular type of car, I could talk to you about the exterior of the car, the interior of the car, and the engine of the car, working our way from outward up to inward. It makes sense. I could also just talk to you about the exterior, the interior, something else, etc. Yes, who raised their hand? Did somebody? Oh, okay, no worries. So spatial organization as well works in the same way of like, let's say you did want to talk about an artifact or like a crest. I'll tell you about the colors, I'll tell you about the patterns on it, and I'll tell you about like the name that's there. Those could be topical, or you could say I'll work from the top down. Or if you were talking about like maybe a piece of jewelry and you wanted to speak about the specific parts, I'll tell you what's at the northern top, the west, the top, the south. So keep that in mind if you wanted those, a different way to organize those main points. And it made sense because you do in fact have an object to pull those things out. So for example, I did an example with everybody else. The calendar gets me through my day. This calendar gets me through my day by keeping me sane. I had a student who did this last time. She was, everywhere without her calendar. So her main points were that it helps her stays organized, and also that it helps her to stay. Because, so why does it keep her same minute present? So this is really how it is, stay organized. So calendar helps keep me through my day, keeps me sane. And the first way it does is through organization. So she talked to us about how she organized her day, what it allowed her to do, and how that helped her to stay sane and not flip out about all the things that she had to do. And then the present, she explained what ways she uses the calendar to do so, which was putting, she had things like what she had to do just now, and then what she has to do in the future, and then what she has to do 3 months from now. So it was almost like how those 3 different ways allow her to not worry about what's coming up in the future, because it's already scheduled and it's already planned. You don't have to think about it in that way. And so that helps you to do what? Stay sane. So that's how it drew back in. So keeping in mind this pattern of organization for main points, is this making sense to y'all? Something you could get up behind and do? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yay, thank you. All right, and the last thing that we're going to do, and a reminder from your last speech, is that your conclusion is there to close. It is not there for you to add additional information or for you to bring in something new or to keep going. There are 3 parts to do, and that's you want to get in and get out. So the first thing you do is you create a signpost, which draws to a close. So something like to close. We repeat our thesis. So today I told you a little bit about how this pin helps me get through times when I am fearful by describing to you who is inside of this pin and what it does for me. I don't know. And then you go back to that attention getter. So how did we start? Did we start with a quotation? Did we start with a story? Did we start with, I don't know, a question? How does that resolve itself? Or what do we know now at the end of the speech that allows us to understand, 1, this thing is over, because, we brought it full circle and tied it into a bow. It looks like a big package. And also like, now we really get it. And we see how it all came together. So the conclusion is really important for you to not just say that's it or to end, but for you to give those proper 3 last parts. It's 20 points, which is important, but also it's going to, well, actually, I think it's 15 points, but it's also helpful for your audience to know when you end and when the ideas are over and how that works. So in terms right now of the format and your organization, how do y'all feel?
I feel pretty good. I have one little silly question.
Not silly at all, you tell me.
Do we have to introduce ourselves again, or do we just fully artifact and?
You don't have to introduce yourself again. You are more than welcome to tell us your name during the reveal topic
Okay.
if you want to, but you don't have to.
Okay. Perfect.
And
Thank you.
by no means do you need to reintroduce. That's for sure.
Got it.
But it does make sense sometimes to like a whole introduction, no, but it does make sense. Any other questions, thoughts, ideas about this speech or writing it? Really? I'm so glad. Yay. Is there anything I can add? Like, does anybody want me to help write one with y'all? I mean,
I have another question.
sure.
I don't think I caught if you said it or not, but is there anything we need to turn in for this specific speech?
No, good call. Nothing until the informative and persuasive.
Okay, okay.